this is what I'm hearing. I mean, people come to me and tell me, this is what happened. How do I handle this? And so, yeah, so that's kind of all wrapped up in this. So yeah, the school board itself, well, we were at the last meeting. There were about, maybe 28 parents that came to the last meeting. And that meeting kind of, we connected well with the parents, the grandparents, and it all came kind of out of that whole thing where I was called dangerous anyways, because these parents are just, they love their children. They had no problem with supporting, classical education. That's what they were expecting for their children. And now they're becoming much more aware that there is something very nefarious happening. So, and it's not just in my riding and my municipality. After all these years of feeling like I banged my head against the wall, parents are united. Parents are waking up. And so it's very gratifying to see. The problem now is we've let this go so long that LGBT activists, so separate the people in the community from the activists. Now, some of them are both, but the reality is the activists are hell-bent, and I'll say this right out loud, they're hell-bent in destroying any sense of morality that your child may have. Your views and values do not matter. They do not care. That is not what they're about. They only are there to promote their own views and values. And because it has become so integrated into the education that unless the trustee has a really solid moral compass, there is no way that they are going to not capitulate to this whole ideology. Without a really strong moral foundation, teachers are barraged, and the trustees are just inundated with this stuff. And you're seeing it in reference to Pride Month, and our children are getting this every single day, week in, week out, and their brains are being affected. Number one, it starts with confusion. Like a child innately know, right from wrong. You ask a small child, who took some cookies out of the cookie jar? And you'll get immediate response. Mostly it's like, not me, Mom, not me. We know when we've done something that really doesn't line up. Internally, we know that. And yet, and we're very good at rebellion from the very earliest ages. But here we are, we're instructing children in very nefarious things, that sexual things that we have no right dabbling in with our children. And the ultimate goal is now, with the radical gender theory, is to queer everything. That means to turn everything normal upside down, all normal morality, male, female, husband, wife, family. The deconstruction of family is really at the top of the list. And so we're living in this age. And because we didn't get on board and recognize it earlier, we are going to have the battle of our lives for our children. That's what I believe. And I think it's pretty evident. But I don't believe we have a choice. We either lay down and die and let our children die, because they will be ultimately annihilated through the course of all of this. Anyways, go ahead, Tom.
The thing that really burns me the most is the fact that, this is going back to Nazi tactics in terms of indoctrinating children. We separate the parents. Yeah. Then we use the school system to push an indoctrination agenda. And, we're seeing the irony of this is how insidious it is. You're seeing what I would say supposedly heterosexual school board members or trustee members socially terraforming the morals, the ethics, and values of children, and telling the parents to back off because you're a bad person for not letting us do this brainwashing stuff to your children. You're not allowing us to brainwash your children. Therefore, you're bad. Back off. We're going to stop permitting you to come into these meetings and asking questions. Like, they're doing all these things to legitimately indoctrinate children, because those children are a captive audience, and precisely because those children are not within proximity to their children to keep an eye on what's going on. That in itself, in my mind, is a form of grooming behavior, and we're going to get into that. But what upsets me is that the school board believes, and the teachers believe, that they have every right to indoctrinate an ideology of our children. And we as parents should not be pushing back. And I'm sorry, but I don't take my children, and I've said this many times publicly before, I don't take my children to their teacher when I need their teeth cleaned. I don't take them to their teacher when I need to put a cast on their arm because they fell and broke their arm, right? I don't take them to the teacher when they need surgery. Okay. But yet we're seeing the schools now, and we saw the schools intervening in some pretty grotesque ways. And I would argue also vicious bullying behavior on the part of school teachers, principals, and boards towards children for the decisions that their parents were making to protect their health. And yet, what kills me, truthfully, is the number of teachers that go along with this indoctrination stuff. Teachers that supposedly went into the profession because they liked being educators and they believed in developing the future of this country through education with kids. And yet they are complicit at destroying the moral fabric of this country by regurgitating a ideology that they have no business discussing with children.
That's right.
And yet they're doing it for a paycheck.
Well,
that disturbs me.
Oh, yeah, it always disturbs me too. I understand the need to bring home the bacon, so to speak. But this goes back years, because this didn't just happen overnight. And I remember, I think it was about 2016, maybe early 2017, when one of my relatives came and was talking. Oh, it must have been I just published Closing the Floodgates, so early 2017. And I'd given her a copy of the book because she was a high school teacher, and then she had come, she looked at it, and her comment was, I'm naively thinking people are going to read this and want to do something to help the children. And she said, well, what am I supposed to do about it? And that's kind of been the comment and the mindset, but the reality is it's been seeping in. And a few years ago, I think around that same time, maybe 2018, the teachers, I think all Ontario teachers, had to go through sensitization training. Well, the minute I heard it, I went, oh, that's desensitization. You see, the whole language, corrupt. It's not about sensitizing. It is about desensitizing teachers and schools to moral concepts, to biblical concepts. You can't dare say that. They threw the Bible out how many years ago? So, but morality is deeply embedded. And so the reality is those teachers, they've been sensitizing these teachers for a long time. And many of them initially, I believe they would have been going, wow, I don't know about this. But they sat there. They sat there and let it happen. And this is what I have against them. Why couldn't they? Because they could have stemmed the tide. It would have still, felt like a tsunami at some points, but they could have stemmed it. They could have made parents aware. They could have instead of keeping their mouths zipped about everything that's going on in the school, they could have been talking to the parents, which is what they should have done, right? Parents have been put in a closet, the door's been locked. you do not touch these children. They belong to us. And that's the whole Nazism thing. Just like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Tom, that's exactly what's been happening. And so when we talked last time, there had been a group, which hopefully your viewers will check out, called Get Real Movement. And I found out about it coming into our schools locally, and I kind of made parents and grandparents aware of it. And the reality is that this kind of stuff is happening in every school, and yet parents aren't made aware. And if they, well, even the trustees weren't made aware it was a Friday at 5 o'clock, 4:45, that they got the notice. I think that's what it was. And then, of course, the event was Monday, and then another one on Tuesday, and another
Mm-hmm.
one on Wednesday in different schools. And so there it goes. There's no time to
Mm-hmm.
evaluate, to critically look at this and go, what is this all about?
Mm-hmm.
And if you checked out the Get Real Moves website, it's a whole lot deeper. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
very sweet. It looks very nice. It's very inclusive, like you said, Tom. We'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Inclusive looking, but
Mm-hmm.
totally discriminatory. And not only
Very.
that, they are coaching our children
Mm-hmm.
on all kinds of. They sell apparatus for girls, so breast binding. They sell.
Mm-hmm.
It's called SPI. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it's basically a fake thing that girls can pay
My
through. They're selling all this stuff. Tell me
yeah,
that that is not grooming. I mean, this is
yeah,
ridiculous. And yet they're in
yeah.
our schools. And the next step, I believe, will be drag shows because it's all covered. You see, what people don't understand is the umbrella, the big LGBTQ umbrella is all encompassing, and it includes
Mm-hmm.
drag, and behind them all are pedophiles. So
Mm-hmm.
there you go. That'll.
So even my son's high school, to go back to them, we as parents received an email talking about a workshop that was going to take place, but it was a voluntary attendance to the workshop if students wanted to. There was two of them. One was to talk about the stereotypes of masculinity. So of course I perked up with this one.
Yeah.
Then the other one was for STEMs. It was for STEMs, women or students who identified as female to participate in this STEMs thing. So I emailed the vice principal. I got a great response. He followed up. I was very happy about that. But the question that I had, in fact, we had a phone call. I said, look, I'm not attacking you, so but I'm trying to be very precise with what is going on here. Because I said, what is the stereotype of masculinity? Because I wasn't aware that there was a stereotype of masculinity, and I'd like you to explain to me what is the stereotypes that you want my son to come and participate. He didn't know. He had to go back and research and figure out what was going on. But I thought, this is the kind of stuff that you better know what the hell you're talking about before you send this out to my children. Or you've got no business sending it out to my children. Maybe what you should do, I'll meet you halfway, is you send it to the parents and say, this is a resource for you if you feel that you're looking for resources to help your child. Because listen, the way I look at it, this is my perspective, is if you truly want to help children, one, you have to help the entire family. Like I come from the autism family. I'm an autism father, and this is not you don't have an autistic child. You have an autistic family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it is important for people to understand that there's a big difference there. And so if you have a child who identifies as a certain way, then you need to recognize that this is not a child issue. It's a family issue. So I think the services and the supports and the help should go to the family on an individual basis as a collective family way of helping everybody. I don't think it's even remotely appropriate that we say, okay, there might be 1% of the population within our school who identify as something other than heterosexual. So we're going to indoctrinate the other 99% to make that one feel good. And we're going to full on indoctrinate you into the ways of that community. And yet there are other subclasses or sub movements within society that don't get any attention, but pride, and I don't want to say pride. I want to leave pride alone for a minute. But, you know, I think that sure, the school is an avenue to get the proper services in proper care under the guardianship of legal guardians and parents, so that the parents are participating in the help that their child might need. The parents can also make decisions that they believe is in the best interest and advocate for their children. That's what they're there for. That's what the point is. But when we have a school system that deliberately and actively says, parents, you're not welcome.
That's right.
You get out of here. You're not welcome. You're a bigot. You're a racist. You're a homophobe. You're dangerous to the rest of the student population. If you dare, I mean, look at what happened to this person named CB out in British Columbia, who did 6 months in jail because he was involved in a case like this with his own daughter. Anyway, I'm talking too long, but I as a parent am very, very hypersensitive and on the lookout for these things in my children's schools. And I don't care what they call me. If I see something out of line, you can guarantee that I'm going to be making calls or showing up in person. And I think more parents need to get on board with that and say, this is pretty nefarious. We didn't really know what's happening, but now that we know, we can't look away anymore. You can't unring the bell.
That's true. And so that's what we have to do, is wake the parents up. So in my school board, when the Get Real movement was coming in, what we found out that they had very little notification. They were not told any specifics about what this was. And, you know, you said it before, like, parents are very busy. Like most parents, there's two parents. If there's two parents, they're both working outside the home, and, you know, they're trying to just live life. And when they're home, they're trying to be with their kids and do things. And so not all of the time do parents even read the stuff, if it makes it to the parent. But what happened was, because I kind of blew the whistle a little bit on this, that parents called the school board, called the school. They tried to go to the school to get in the meeting. So one parent, this is what one parent told me, but I would totally believe this parent. The principal told the parent, well, this isn't like a field trip, and this is curricular information. This is part of the curriculum, and therefore not allowed to come in. Like, well, I want to be able to go, this is a taxpayer school. We pay taxes. We need to know what our children are being taught. And if I want to sit in the darn classroom, I'll sit in the classroom.
There should be no condition, no situation where a parent is prevented from participating in their child's education at a publicly funded school. There's no situation where the parents should be told, you cannot come in here and be here. That is absolutely ridiculous.
So here's the other thing. So then another parent went to the school, didn't call, just went, and was met at the door and told no, they could not come in. The doors were locked. They were not allowed to go into the auditorium to view what the children were hearing. And so that just riled me right up. I mean, I'm like, how dare they?
What do they have to hide?
Well,
what do they have to hide?
What is the secret here? And then I heard from students. And so this is kind of third-hand information. But what they said is that they were told from the platform, they were herded into the auditorium, and they were told that they could not leave the room for any reason. Are you kidding me? They had now, it was mandatory that they went. That was the first thing. Lots of them didn't know what they were going to. In fact, probably none of them really understood what they were going to. And so we have gays, lesbians, and bisexuals, and transgender, cross-sex identifying individuals sharing their stories, sexualized stories, to our children as part of, and I'll just say this, part of grooming, part of this whole, when they say it's curricular, it's in every part of the curriculum now. And And so that's where the indoctrination comes in. And then they have these special people coming in. They're paid $300 a day. They are not professionals. They are not teachers. They're coming in. And I don't have a problem with a non-teacher coming in to tell the child. I mean, my one son, he likes everything amphibious and snakes and all, and so sometimes he would go into the school. He had a big boa constrictor, and he had all kinds of scorpions, and he would take them into the schools and talk to the kids. Okay, but the parents knew, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the children were not made to stay in those classes. Can you imagine if you had a boa constrictor and you made your child stay? The teacher made the child, whoa, what an uproar. I mean, the kids
Yeah.
loved it because it was kind of hands-on. It wasn't a biology class and or
Mm-hmm.
science class. Anyways, fine. But it wasn't sexualized. It wasn't the information they're doing now. And
Mm-hmm.
so the other thing that Get Real movement does, in my estimation, is pave the way now to bring drag queens into the school,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the next step. And it's all under the umbrella. Everything is good and it's inclusive, all under inclusivity, which brings
Yeah.
me back to this whole letter that I wrote the school board. So I better stop there, but
Mm-hmm.
we have to really push back, because when we are not allowed in the schools, tax funded schools, and we cannot protect our children, we don't know what they're hearing. We're not allowed, and Lord knows you'd never be allowed to videotape it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there too many secrets, too many lies, too much propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
All of it needs to go. And because it isn't going to just be eradicated,
Mm-hmm.
parents need to get their kids out of the public school system, because their brains are neurologically being changed, they're being
Mm-hmm.
corrupted, and they're so confused, they're so depressed, their grades, their marks are down, overall everything, and in all of the other subjects are just, they
Yeah.
just are really struggling, and because we have brought all this stuff in. So inclusivity doesn't mean just embracing everyone and making everyone the same. That's just so wrong. So I think that's where we need to really identify things. So yeah, I decided to send a letter to the trustees and Stephen
Mm-hmm.
Lecce, and just begin to really go, okay, I don't think you guys have a clue what these words mean that you say.
I want to, before we get into that, because it's important that we do, there's a couple of comments I want to make. Um, Doug Ford, when he was running, was
Mhm.
talking about kind of changing the sex ed curriculum brought in by Kathleen Wynne.
Yeah.
But then the NDP introduced a bill. Um, I can't remember the specific number of the bill, but it was all the wokeism. It was written by an NDP. It was unanimously supported by Doug Ford's party, and it passed through no problem. Now, it was almost it was coming close to the end, but because of the election last year, anything in the pipeline had to go back to the very beginning. So, but he was fully supporting this wokeism in the schools. And all the gender ideology, the anti-racism, which we all
Yeah.
know is racism. And it's so, from a government, from the provincial government's point of view, they're more than happy to push these agendas right down into the lowest level of school systems. Now, the one thing I do want to mention, you touched on, it kind of cued me to comment on this. If you look at a case like Josh Alexander in
Mhm.
Renfrew, Josh goes to a Catholic high school. He's 17 years old, and his father is a veteran, an Army veteran, but a public school teacher, and so is his mother, public school teachers. Josh was the first one in the Catholic school, and I highlight this, the Catholic school, because I want to talk where is our moral compass
I
from the
know.
Catholic school system. He was pushing back and protesting allowing men into female spaces like washrooms and change rooms. And he was pushing back and protesting against that. The public school loaded up a bus of teachers led by a principal,
Yes.
sent those teachers to Josh's school to counter protest students. This is how bad the indoctrination is
Oh,
amongst
right.
the school teachers. So they protested against Josh's protest. Now, both Josh's parents, Josh's father is a military veteran and now a teacher. Both Josh's parents have been put on unpaid leave by the public school board because of the actions of their son who's protesting against women having protected spaces.
Yeah.
This is the level of absurdity we're seeing amongst the school boards. And then now you got this other one. She finally resigned. She was a school board trustee in Ontario, who said that Christian men are the most dangerous creatures on the face of the earth, or something along that line. And she's a trustee at a Catholic school board. I'd like her to say that to the Pope, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, Tom. Listen, all of this stuff, because they've had years of assimilation into this, and they honestly, the level of education, well, indoctrination that the teachers themselves have been submitted. No, that's the wrong word. I think, they've surrendered to all of this.
Yes.
And really
totally capitulated.
That's
absolutely
the word,
capitulated.
that's the word. And because, I used to say to my kids, garbage in, garbage out. So what are you putting in your mind? What you focus on, what you believe, what you track in your brain, on those neural pathways, so if you believe that it's dangerous to go out in the rain, because if you go out in the rain, you'll get struck with lightning. Well, and if you're told that every single day of your life, that child will be terrified to go out in the rain. I mean, we instill either courage, we instill truth, we instill righteousness, we instill justice, we instill right thinking and equitable, equality, all of those good words that the schools love to throw out there. We instill those in our child. And those things all track neurologically in their brain, and they end up directing the course of your life, basically. So what you believe, you end up practicing, basically. I mean, that's a really simplistic way, but it directs our mindsets. And so when we have this kind of level of indoctrination, unceasing, what we're seeing is that these teachers are so blinded to truth. It's sometimes it's hard to believe someone could be so lacking in a moral compass and in truth and understanding that they would actually, stand against a young man who's just saying it's wrong. And Josh, he simply started this by standing in front of the girls' bathroom because the girls were complaining about boys putting on skirts and going into their bathroom. Listen, as a parent, if I had a daughter that had this happen in her school, I would be there so quickly, like a dirty shirt. Now, it might embarrass my daughter a little bit, but I would be standing in front of the bathroom and say, "You're not coming in. You are not coming in. You are male. You have a penis. You are not going into the girls' bathroom for any reason. Any reason."
Yes.
You skirt off in the boys' bathroom. Let's just deal with this. And the whole gender dysphoria thing, I'm not suggesting these children don't need help. They need help, not to transition. They need mental help. They need psychological help. And that now has been kind of ratified in UK, Sweden, Finland, Norway, and most recently in Australia. They have all pulled back from affirming the carte blanche. You just have to affirm the child, tell them that, yep, they're right, and get them on puberty blockers really quickly. That they've all pulled back.